Hi guys, Dave here again. Another car video. This is my 1986 Camaro IROC Z in black and gold. I am the original owner of this car. Bought it on July 3rd, 1986 from Carl Chevrolet in Enfield, Connecticut. It has 43,000 miles on it. 39,000 on the road, and it's got about 4,000 miles of it on it, basically up on jack stands, just trying to keep in the time it's been sitting in hibernation since 1992, just starting it up and putting it in gear and letting things turn. So 10% of the mileage has been up on jack stands, but obviously what is happening here is a different story. So again, I've owned this car for a long time. It's been off the road for a very long time, most of its life. And as I was getting to a point of wanting to get it back and put it back together, I was trying to decide what I wanted to do with the tune port. As you know, this is a, as you probably know anyway, this is an original 305 TPI with a 700 R4 transmission. In its day, it was pretty good. By today's standards, not so good. There's lots of performance things you can do with tune ports. They all involve, if you're going to go, wild cams and different things like that, different bigger blocks. You basically have to go to a standalone computer system. You can spend an awful lot of time trying to get the original computer system to tolerate the modifications you made, but it's a lot harder. The modern standalone systems like the Holleys and whatnot, they just deal with this stuff so much better. So I decided, after a very long time of thinking about it, to take the original 305 out, and this is what it looks like now. It is going to be saved. Like I said, this is the original engine. It's only got, it doesn't even have 50,000 miles on it. So right now it looks like an absolute mess. I'm going to take care of this. It's going to get on an engine stand once this sucker goes in that engine bay. This is a Smetting 427. This is after many years of thinking about what I wanted to do with this car. This is what I landed on. I did not go with an LS swap. Nothing against LSs by any stretch. They're freaking fantastic, probably as good as or better than this, but it's just not what I wanted to do. And I think that's what it boils down to, is what do I want to do with this car? It's for me. And 427 it is. So this is going to stay fuel injected. I ordered a first intake from Ken, first in fuel injection. It is coming in this week. So a later video will be putting that together, or putting that on the long block I bought and getting that installed in the car. What the purpose of this video is to speak a little bit to, if you're thinking about taking out a TPI, and what I'll say is upgrading. I'll classify it as an upgrade. At least it is in my case. Obviously, and what I mean by that is, if you're going to carbureted or something, some of this might apply to you, but some of it's irrelevant, because a lot of the computer control is likely not as important. But as I'm staying with fuel injection, and I'm staying with a computer controlled system, albeit different, this is where my thoughts are. So taking out, I didn't record the video of obviously taking the engine out and all that. Obviously, it's already out on the ground over there. So I think if you're thinking about this, I hope you already know how to do this, because otherwise this is a little bit more intense than you might have up you're ready for, I guess. So this is more about taking the original wire TPI wiring harness out and the computer, and some of the specific things involved with what do you need to salvage, or at least from the factory, if you're not replacing everything. So let's just dive right into it. So on this side, passenger side of the car, on this side, from the factory, the fuel pressure, the fuel pump power comes directly off the battery and goes to the fuse. The fuse is right here. Odd place to put it, but that's where the factory put it. And it goes to a quick disconnect. It's this orange black wire, and it goes to a quick disconnect. Not sure why they did that, but they did. And then originally it ran around on the cowl, and it ran around to this side. The fuel pump relay was on the firewall right there. There were 4 components that were there. There was the fuel pump relay, and there were 2 MAF relays. This was a MAF car. And the timing control, or ignition control, was also there. So obviously don't need any of that. Took all that out, and you end up with a long orange and black stripe wire that now is just basically hot and doesn't really go anywhere. So you need to have some type of fuel pump control. So I could have left the original relay over there, but I'm putting a Holley fuel injection system in it, and Holley timing, and my plan is to put all of that mounted over on that part of the firewall. So I needed that space. So what I did over here at the AC box, this is the original factory, I think that's the blower motor relay. There was an empty bay right here, and I just bought another relay and mounted it right there. And the orange black, you can see, is right here. So that comes directly from that quick disconnect in the fuse, and comes up to here. Obviously I got my ground ran on that, and then there's 2 other wires that you need. One is the trigger wire for the fuel pump, which is this gray wire. So that'll, once my Holley system comes in, the ECU, I'll wire that to the ECU, and when the computer, the new Holley computer, commands fuel pump turn on, that'll connect to this, and that'll turn it on. The output is down there, that brown wire. That brown wire runs down back through the original factory connection point, or hole in the fuse block, or not the fuse block, I'm sorry, in the well. And inside the car, sorry, it's probably gonna be dark in here, everything's disconnected. Inside, yeah, it's, sorry. Let's see if I get the fan on. Anyway, that brown wire comes in right here. On the original pigtail, this is, I did the pin out on it. This goes directly, this brown goes directly to the fuel pump. So I'll just wire this into that, cut it off of here, but I made it so that I can splice it back if I want to in the future. I'll splice that to that, and then that will turn on the fuel pump when the Holley commands it. So need that for obviously getting fuel pump control. On this side, there is also the fan relay. So again, comes directly off the battery. Again, goes very similar, goes to its own quick disconnect, goes to the relay. And what I did was I ran the fan control wire, is this brown white. This, you put 12 volts to this, and it turns on the relay, and which will then turn on the fan. So the fan control relay will also get wired to the Holley ECU output. Also going to do one other thing, which I'll talk about here in just a second, but this car had factory AC, and I plan to keep air conditioning in the car. So I also need, when you turn the AC on, the fan has to go on. So I'm not 100% certain if the Holley system will command the fan to turn on when the AC goes on. I've read some places that you can do it. I'm probably going to what I'll call foolproof it myself. I'll just, rather than try to figure out how Holley does it and maybe I have to buy another component or whatever. I don't know, but I'm just going to figure it out myself. What I did, let's back up. Well, let's do this. On this side, there's also the high pressure switch. This blue wire and black wire, this went to the ECU in the factory harness. So when you take the harness out, this quick disconnect and the black and blue wire are going to go. So if you intend to keep a high pressure switch, which is recommended you do, you don't have to, but it's recommended, you got to find a way to connect that to your system, because originally, like I said, that went only to the ECU, and the ECU controlled the AC. So what I've been able to figure out with the factory wiring for the AC is this green wire is 12 volt hot when you turn on the AC on the dash. So basically, when you turn the AC on inside the car, this is what actually goes hot, and that ran into the low pressures. I believe that's the low pressure switch. That runs into here, assuming this is sees the right pressure or whatever. It closes the circuit and sends out blue, and the blue goes to, sorry, it's way down here right now. That blue goes to this round connector that goes onto the compressor. Sorry, that fell on the header and got melted. So that's kind of like the circuitry. The rest is obviously all factory. So I didn't need to change that. But so what's happening here? What did I change? So green wire, in order to make the high pressure work, and what I've learned is, right, this high pressure switch is normally closed, which means in an under normal situation, when this switch isn't seeing a very high pressure, which I'm not exactly sure what GM has it at, but let's just, for the sake of argument right now, say it's like 400 psi. As long as this pressure switch is seeing less than 400 psi, this switch is closed. So there's continuity between these two wires. When the pressure gets high, it opens, and the current in stops current out. So it would basically, in this case, shut the air conditioning compressor off, which is what you want it to do. So to accomplish that, power coming from the dash, hot, goes out through the black wire, black, blue comes out, and then blue goes right into there. Pretty sure that's going to work. And as long as there's no high pressure, the circuit stays hot when you turn the AC on, and then the whole system works the way it's supposed to. The one thing that's missing here right now, which is what we were talking about before, is fan control. So fan control by ECU is this brown wire. Right now, there's no way for, if you turn the AC on, there's no way to turn this on. You could simply just connect this to here. And then every time you turn the AC on, the fan turns on. There's certainly nothing wrong with that. But then there's nothing to connect the ECU to, which is obviously a whole lot more important. Well, you could just simply make it a Y, so a splitter, so it goes from here to there. But the problem with that is, if the AC is off and the engine starts to get warm and the computer commands the fan to switch on, it's then going to it's going to send the 12 volts out, the reference voltage out to this wire, which will then click the relay and turn the fan on. But it's also going to send that voltage through the AC system. And I'm thinking, number one, it might pop a fuse, because I'm not sure how much it's going to demand. But certainly don't want my AC turning on every time the fan turns on, and then turns off and turns on and turns off. I mean, that's just ridiculous. So the way to do it is to put in a diode. And what a diode is, if you're not familiar with a diode is like if you're more familiar with plumbing or something, it's a one-way valve. It's like a check valve in electricity. So current can flow in one direction, but it can't flow in the other. So what I'm going to do is take this green wire, to green to black, and I'm going to break this, and I'm going to splice in, so the Y will be here. It'll go green to black, and also a leg coming off to a diode. And what that'll do is when this green turns on, when AC is on, it's going to go out to the fan. So it'll also turn on the fan. But when the AC is off, but the computer says, hey, I want you to turn on the fan, and power goes to here, it's not going to reverse flow to here and turn on the AC, right? It's a one-way valve. It can only allow current to flow in one direction. So, like I said, I think Holley has a way you can do it as well. This is a very simple electrical thing to do. You can get the parts just at your auto parts store. AC Delco has in the modern cars, I think that's how they do it. They have diodes you can buy at the AC Delco. In this case, diodes are at my O'Reilly for like, I don't know, I think they're like $15. And then you just need a mini fuse holder. So basically that's what I'm going to do. Is I'm going to cut this, put in a mini fuse holder going to here, and put a diode in it. So that should solve the problem of the AC turn on. Other thing to talk about, I think, if you're looking at doing this, again, getting back to the firewall, right back there where the relays and the spark control is at, factory. You see that pigtail with the green and brown wire. The brown wire is your gauge oil pressure sending unit connection. I want to keep that. The green wire ran to the ECU. Obviously you can see I've got it heat shrinked, I've got it isolated, so it doesn't go to anything anymore. On the downside of that, you see the green wire that is also, it's going into that wire loom, which is going inside the car into the dash. I am not 100% what that does. I believe, and it's just a belief, that it goes to the oil pressure idiot light, if you will, the warning light that's on the dash for the oil pressure. In the earlier, certainly Camaro, if not all of GM, fuel injection systems, they doubled up on basically everything. So your sending units, here we are looking at the oil pressure sending unit for the gauge. So this is the actual swing gauge on the dash. The oil pressure goes up and down from 0 to 60 or whatever. That is coming off of this. This is a very common part that Chevy, GM used for decades. The one below it is the one for the computer. And what that does, as I understand from reading about it, is two things. When the oil pressure was low, whatever low is, I'm not 100% certain what they use, but when that switch would trigger low, it would impact how the fuel pump worked. Obviously, it turns on for a moment in order to get fuel pressure. If there's no pressure and you want to start the car, right? There's not going to be any oil pressure, but it has to allow fuel in order to start. So somehow in the brains of the ECM, when that doesn't see oil pressure, it does allow the fuel pump to turn on for however long. But while the engine's running, whatever the value is, if the oil pressure gets below, it's my understanding that it'll shut off. Not 100% certain about that, but that's what I understand. Don't need that anymore. The other thing, I think that green wire that came off of that goes to the dash. Like I said, I think it was the warning light. So when the oil pressure would be below a certain value, it would just command that light. So if you're not familiar with how the wiring is on a lot of these cars, like I said, there's double of everything, which is part of the reason why there's so many freaking wires. Gauges are independent of ECM. Oil pressure has 2, like we talked about. Water temperature has 2. On the driver's side, between spark plugs 1 and 3, you got your oil temperature sending unit. Water temperature sending unit here. The computer one is up here. So they doubled up on everything. I am going to put this engine on the stand once the 427 is in the car and that stand is available. This engine is going to get put up on that stand and reassembled. Wiring will be all rehooked up, and I'm going to figure out enough of the wiring in order to get this thing to start and run on the stand. That'll be a video for some other time. This will be my next video. Again, first fuel injection manifolds coming in this week. I'm going to get that mounted on here before I put the motor in the car. There's a couple things. I like working on it at this level. It's a lot easier than reaching over the car. And with the factory accessories, there's some original weird connections that probably will take some tweaking in order to get them to work right. The alternator bracket has this thing that mounts to the intake manifold, which I'm not sure that's going to work. So if it doesn't, I need to figure out some way to brace that better. And then for the air conditioning compressor, I need to figure out something for that. There's another bracket that goes on here that relies on a mount to the intake manifold bracketry. So not rushing through it. I'm going to get that all figured out before this motor goes in. But the next video will be about putting the first intake manifold on, and then probably talk a little bit more about any modifications I need to make to the accessory brackets. I'll just spend more time talking about the motor in the next video because it did some other different things. Back to this last thought, I think, on the 700R4, if that's what you have. So, and Sorry, probably wondering what's going on here. That's just so those are the original, the grounds, obviously ground coming off the chassis, ground coming from the dash. I just have them pinched together. Normally those are bolted to the back of the head on the engine. So there's no ground basically coming from inside the car. So I just have them put on a wire that I was running to the battery when I want to test stuff. So if you're wondering what the heck is going on there, that's what that is. 700 R4. This engine, this cam needs a higher stall, so I've got a 2400 stall, new B&M hole shot torque converter sitting there. If you, depending on what you're going with, whatever your engine builder or your cam specs, pay attention to that, because you don't want to spend a whole lot of time and money on a motor and then don't pair it with the right torque converter. You're not going to get what you're paying for out of it. Like I said, this was not the original transmission. This was modified in the early 90s. This is a B&M Transkit modified transmission. So there's a few things that were modded to it, and one of the things was the lockup. So if yours is a factory 700R4, or you don't know if it's been modified, you probably will need, and I'm doing it on this car anyway, just to make sure that, because it's almost 40 years old, things are working right. You're going to need to, without the ECM in the car anymore, the factory ECM, you're going to need a very basic control system for the lockup on this torque converter. There's quite a few different companies out there that manufacture them. I went with the Monster transmission version. I think it's like $200. On the driver's side, which is on the right in this view, there's a pigtail, 4-pin pigtail towards the back of the bell housing that just pops right out, and those wires went to a few different spots, but one of them goes to the ECM, and that's obviously doesn't do anything anymore with the ECMs out. So you need to find a way to command lockup through that system, and one of the ways to do it is with a pressure switch, which depending on which 700R4 you have, you may or may not have the port for it. I'm not sponsored by Monster or anything like that. I'm just more familiar with some of their parts or their kits that are available. You can buy the kit with it already, as the ports available, or without. And if you have the port available, it's as simple as unscrewing the original pressure sending unit and screwing in the new one, which is, in the case of mine's already been modified, so I already have the pressure port. It's on the passenger side. There's no way you're going to see it, but it's back again, right behind the bell housing. There's basically just like a brass elbow, if you will, that goes into the transmission. It picks up 4th gear pressure, fluid pressure, and it goes to a switch, and that's what goes to that pigtail. That's not come in yet, so that needs to get installed. But again, without the factory ECM, you're going to need some way to control that. So look into that. So long story short here, guys, if you're doing this and you want to retain some of the original functionality, this is what I wanted to go through in this video, is when you pull out that rat's nest of wiring from the factory ECM, what needs to be at a minimum to stay fuel injected, what wiring do you need to have, or what do you want, how to modify. Fuel pressure, fuel pump pressure wire, right? So power feed going to your some type of relay out to the, you have to reconnect inside the car to the ECM, or where the ECM connected, I should say. And then however your computer system is going to command that relay to open, close. You got to have that. If you're going to be using AC, you need to reconfigure that, hopefully to work better and safer. Your fan relay, again, in my case, I put it right here. You need that. You need your transmission control. You're going to want to do something with your gauge wires for oil pressure. That's that green wire, like I said, that's coming out of the original harness. You're gonna have to cut that out. Not too much on this side. Vapor canister was here. I took it out. It was controlled by the ECM as well. So without that, it's not really going to do anything. So I took it out. That's what's capped off right here. I do need to deal with that. Haven't got around to that yet, but that's going to be something. This is all the power steering connections. It's got them capped off. And fuel supply, return hose. Just have them sitting there right now. I am going to replace that with a new system. Just have them like that to keep junk from getting in and allow them to vent. Depending on what you go with, sorry, or what you have for your fuel pump, you may have to have a regulator, which is what the route I'm going to go in this case. So fuel pressure coming from the tank supply, and then whatever gets bypassed will connect. Again, not using this again, don't get worried, but I'm going to reuse the return line and the supply line. So supply will go to the regulator. Regulator will obviously go out to the engine, and then anything whatever I set the regulator at, whatever's not needed, will return back to the tank on that. So you need to figure that out. And then depending on what you're doing with your engine, fan, and radiator. I bought a new 4-core from Summit Racing. It's big. It doesn't like to be in there. It's a big radiator, but obviously that's going to go in after the engine's in, and they do fit. It's a struggle. They use every last millimeter of space to get the thing in there, so or to get as much capacity. So it'll work. It's just a little bit of a struggle. So I don't think there's too much more on this. If you're pulling this out, I mean, obviously, I guess what is up with the options with these, again, there's people that do things to the factory. For a long time, I really wanted to keep this engine. Again, factory car, original to me. The last thing I wanted to do was pull this engine out and hibernate it, basically. But at the end of the day, the money it was going to take to try to get somewhere near the level of performance, and the budget it would take, it can be done. I'm not saying it's impossible. There are a handful of people on YouTube that have amazing tune port engines. I'm talking output north of 500. But in my honest opinion, it's probably as much work and more complicated than replacing it with a new system. I don't want to spend that much time with the factory ECM, trying to get everything perfect. There's certainly modern ECMs that can go plug and play with these that offer a lot more tunability without having to burn proms in that much type of work, which would have been the only way I would have gone if I stayed. But again, at the end of the day, I mean, this whole system was just not ever intended to see that kind of horsepower. And I'm not looking. I mean, that is hopefully. I mean, like I said, factory long block. The way the cam I had it built with 540 horsepower. You know, with the intake and everything I'm doing, I know I'm not ever going to see. I mean, and obviously that's gross, but honestly, guys, I think if I'm at 450, I'm going to call it good. I'm going from 210, I think, is what this was. I had already swapped the cam in it from before, did some head work, never put it on a dyno. It's, you know, even a dyno and 200 horsepower. It's, but I think it's going to be a massive increase. And I just didn't want to go down a road where I'm spending a bunch of money trying to make a tune port go up in that range and then be, you know, stuck with things like that. It's just there's limitations to what these are capable of from the factory, and I didn't want to go down a road and then be essentially stuck, and then end up having to, after doing all that, end up having to go somewhere that way anyway. So that's where I'm at. I love seeing these things built up to be 500 horse engines. This isn't going to be one of them. This is going to stay factory as much as possible. Like I said, I've already modified some things, but from the outside, you'd never know. All that is hidden inside with cam, lifters, and headwork. So at some point, somebody after me wants to put this back to completely factory. It is possible. It'll all be there. So enough ranting about that. Next video will be first tune port intake going on my 427 and getting some of the other wiring fixed up. We'll see you guys. Thanks.